Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, we've got a special guest, a special friend of mine, actually. Her name is Juliette. Now, Juliette is known as a strength coach, but also as a functional nutrition practitioner. Juliette and I have known each other for, so many years. It's so funny just to look back at what we've accomplished together and separately in terms of leading our own health and fitness lifestyles, as well as business. A little bit about Juliette is she actually has a background in pursuing a dance career. And you're probably going to laugh at this right now, Juliette, but I remember that conversation we had years ago about how we wanted to become dancers. And obviously that didn't fall through. We ended up becoming coaches. But from your passion of, wanting to pursue dancing, you've noticed a passion that has evolved to fuel that drive more towards fitness and your approach to health as well, which has obviously strongly focused on helping women create a healthy and a positive relationship, not only with their bodies, but with their food and with their health, which is something that I'm so up for, and I do that myself as too. And for our listeners, Juliette actually is going through her own pregnancy journey right now, and I know we're going to touch base on this in today's podcast. So Juliette, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm stoked to be here. I was trying to think about when we actually met or where it was, and I, for the life of me, couldn't even remember. Probably at a seminar. I don't know.
Could be the seminar, one of the many that we've been to many years ago.
I know.
But for some reason, I have us training at Hammer House in Melbourne.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And the evolution that we've both been through has been amazing.
Yeah, life-changing.
So amazing. Seriously. Yeah, for sure. I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me on today, Siggy.
No, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
So for our listeners who don't know Juliette, do you mind, giving us a little bit of a background of how you got started in the health and fitness industry?
Absolutely. So as Siggy said, my background is in dance. So I moved to Melbourne from Little Hobart, 11, nearly 12 years ago, something like that. I don't know, I lose track now. And I got accepted into performing arts school. So I was dancing full-time for 2 years with the goal to go on and pursue a career in dance. Within my first year of study with dance, I decided I needed a backup option just to be safe because it's such a unstable industry and I like to have security. So I studied PT part-time while I was dancing full-time and working a gazillion jobs when you're 20. And then in the second year of full-time dance, I went on to start working in the industry, just doing your typical boot camps and group fitness and stuff like that. Finished dancing and then went, right, okay, I'll keep doing auditions for the next 6 months, but I really need some security and I need something else. So I then shifted into commercial gyms, which I suppose is where a lot of PTs start, and just went full-time in a gym. Many lessons working in commercial gyms. I started with a pretty good bunch of people in the industry. They were really helpful with upskilling and that sort of thing. But honestly, when I walked into the gym to start with, I had never used a gym before. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a PT that was like, all right, cool, I've got to figure out how to do all this myself. No idea at all. I had been very active for a very long time, but dancing and Pilates and that style of thing, cardio, so not your typical weights training at all. And then I just continued to develop a passion and a love for helping people and women's health. It just continued to evolve. I think like many people's journey within the industry, you start off with general pop and then you start to figure out what you like and shift through just naturally and progress with your own passion. So when I started in the industry, I felt a little bit lost because I had spent 18 years on stage performing and dancing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing now? Like, I have no goal and I'm very driven. So I did almost 3 years. Well, you could kind of say 3 years of bikini comps, which was an incredible learning curve. I wouldn't change it for the world, but wow, if I knew what I knew now, that whole journey would be an entirely different journey. And I say nearly 3 years because my third year I prepped, and I had an incredible coach at the time who said, I don't think you're going to be ready. And he knew that I wanted to get on stage to win, not just to look good and be part of the journey. So we shifted and I just said, okay, let's do a powerlifting comp. So I went and did a deadlift meet instead. And that's kind of where everything shifted for me, I think. I went from being incredibly, incredibly body image focused, and, I just put myself on stage for the last 21 years to be judged. Really, like, that's whether it's dance or bikini comps, you're getting on stage to have someone else tell you whether or not you look good enough, basically.
Yeah.
And I was just burnt out from it, and the terrible nutrition and the terribly overtraining and the stupid work hours that you do when you start a commercial gym. And I just went, no, something has to be different. And that's when my real passion for actually restoring women's health and getting strong and focusing on how you feel from the inside out really started to flourish. And I just went, right, this is it. Because I'm sure you can probably relate to this with, if you're on a gym floor and you're PTing, there's only so much you can help someone. You've got 45 minutes maybe in that session, and what they do outside that session, you have no control over, really. But also I was getting to a point with clients where I just thought they need more help. It's not as simple as them coming to the gym and me saying, eat wholesome, nourishing foods. Like, there's so much more going on that women don't understand. And I needed to understand it in my brain. I was like, I need to be able to help people better. So from there, I couldn't tell you how many upskilling courses and personal and professional development, and went on to do a course with FDN, which is the functional nutrition. So that just set it off for me. And it's just been an absolute rabbit hole ever since. And my business has just kept flourishing and growing and building from there. So it is where it is today. And I suppose I've been doing more this side of things since about 2016. It's where I really kind of went, right, this is the direction I need to go in now. So yeah, that's my story.
So good. Such a fascinating story. And I can totally relate to the transition. Like, obviously I don't do the functional nutrition side of things, but transitioning from like body comps to just focusing on body composition to more performance based, and then onto health, and then more, growth and involvement and empowerment for women outside of just the external world is so impactful. And in terms of like the extra education, I think that's something that a lot of PTs underestimate when they first get into the industry. I did, for sure. Once I did my set 3 and 4, I was like, yep, I'm certified. I can train anyone and everyone. But you just don't realize as you progress over the years, you're like, wow, I actually don't know anything. Because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And I'm sure you can relate to that.
Absolutely. I was really lucky at the time when I started in the industry. My partner at the time, we worked together, and he was also really big on professional development, and he kind of led the way a little bit. He had a much more extensive training background than I did with relation to gyms and that side of things, and bodybuilding. So we both did so much professional development, and once you start, it's like it just ignites this something in you. For me, it does, and I know you're the same, where you just need to know more. You need to better understand it, because the more well-equipped you are, the better you can help your clients. And going in a service-based industry, the better you can help your client, the better you feel. Like, we do what we do because we love helping people. So to be able to skyrocket someone's results and accelerate results simply through improving yourself, it's like a no-brainer. So I've loved just the evolution of learning everything I have today, and I still keep doing. Like I've just finished working with another mentor literally like 2 weeks ago, despite having been in the industry for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? I had this conversation with one of the other coaches that the more you learn, the better you're able to adapt and even grow as a coach yourself. Because, like we said, when we first started off, we didn't really know who we wanted to train. So we would have trained anyone and everyone. But now we have a specific niche, even though I don't like that word.
Yeah.
But you have a specific demographic that you're wanting to help and coach, and that way you're able to not only help them more, but help yourself understand the information that you're taking on board.
100%. And I can't remember, I think you were talking about this with someone in another podcast. I was listening to your other ones, but like I say screen my prospective clients before they come on board, for lack of a better word, but I won't take everyone on simply because if somebody isn't aligned with how I help someone and the place of service that I come from, there's a lot of resistance, but also they're not going to get the best coaching experience because what I'm offering is not what they want. So it's super important for me that the clients that are wanting to work with me are really aligned with my values and my beliefs and willing to trust the process that I can offer, because that's how we get the best result. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, gosh, when I started on the gym floor, it was like, oh my God, I just take any client. Like, I just need to work with people. And now it's almost a little bit liberating to get to a point from a business point of view where you can go, yes, I'll work with this client, and no, I won't work with that client. And you can not pick and choose, but you can clearly identify the people that you can actually help. Yeah. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, totally. And to be honest, I probably had this conversation with so many coaches. It's such a common topic amongst all of us because, yes, we're here to make money, but we're also here to make an impact on people. And like you said, if the client that is wanting to work with you does not align with your values, it's just going to clash. You're just going to keep like hitting heads together. Nothing's going to work. They're either not going to trust you, you're not going to trust them. So around that, like, what is it that you look for in a client when you're doing that screening method?
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot in the last 12 months since entirely shifting my business online. So in line with COVID, I was doing a little bit online, but majority of my coaching was face-to-face. So shifting online then meant I had to figure out how to get clients online. I was like, I don't know how to grow a business online. I'm used to being in a gym floor where people watch me working with clients. And if that aligns with them, they will approach me or I will approach them, and I can actually physically help them in the moment. So yeah, shifting online has been certainly a really big evolution within my own coaching and business skills, because I've had to go, oh, how do I get a new client when I'm simply messaging them in a DM, or, you know, they've just messaged me. So what I look for is getting really clear on how they need help, where they're stuck. If I can really understand where you are stuck and what your main challenges are at the moment, that allows me to determine whether or not I can actually help you. If you're having issues with your cycle, with your gut health, with accountability, with, just burnout and anxiety, things like that, and we can kind of pinpoint where that could be stemming from, the more I know, the better I can determine if I can help and if they're coachable, because not everyone is coachable as well. And when you get those clients, if you're starting out in the industry and you get someone that's not coachable, or they're just not a good fit for you, don't take it personally. It's so not your fault. It's just not everyone is going to mesh with you, and that's totally okay. So yeah, it's just identifying people's struggles and having empathy for that as well, because people just want to feel heard as well. And it's frustrating, like I've been there, when you have a problem or something's not right and you just don't feel like anyone can give you the right answers. Yeah. And you like, I can go into that with you if you like, but yeah, I'm just like, it's hard when you're frustrated and you feel stuck. Like when you're at that roadblock, you just need someone to show you the possibilities and show you what it could look like if we're able to remove those handbrakes. So yeah, for me, it's identifying whether or not someone, I can help them with their current issues.
Yeah, so true. I love that you mentioned that around someone being coachable. To be honest, from a personal experience, I remember when I used to hire coaches when I just first started, I was not coachable.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't open-minded. I didn't trust the process. I always, questioned everything they did. That's someone who's not coachable. Someone who is coachable has to be open-minded and
absolutely
trust the process and actually trust the coach that they're going to help them get there.
Yep. You I think people want to be, some people want to just be told what to do and given the answer, which is not super helpful, because if you're not willing to recognize that what you're doing is not working and that you need to be open to actually making a change within your whole lifestyle, within all facets, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever that looks like, you will only get so far as how far you are willing to be open. And if you're just stuck there, then you're just going to keep the people that keep getting to that roadblock and can't get past it. There's something there that's stopping you. And I know for me, a lot of it was mental as well with my own health and healing journey. I can look at moments where I went, right, yeah, that was a real game changer for me. And you think you're maybe open and doing the right things, but there's always something. When you release that, even from a coaching point of view or a business point of view or in your profession, when you eliminate that roadblock, you will watch things skyrocket.
What are some roadblocks that you found with with women who've wanted to come and coach with you and you're like, no, like this is not going to work?
A good, probably common example is, what do all women want? To look better. I want to be more toned. I want to look better. Cool. All right, great. But what's beyond that? When we actually, that's like super superficial and right on the outside. If we look below that and we start to unpack what's actually going on below that, then usually I can figure out whether or not I can help them. If they're super stuck here and I can't even break this surface level and it's simply, I want to look better and it's super, super aesthetics based, it's really hard because all they care about is a number on the scale or how they look in the mirror or being a certain size with their dress. And it's like, I need a jackhammer to just like, to break down, like, why the actual fuck are you here? It's not about being a certain dress size. I know that that's what you think it is, but it's not. And for as long as all you focus on is how you look, you are never going to get to where you want, because I can assure you, you won't be happy if I get you there. There's something else going on, which is the real reason that you're telling yourself you're not happy. Yeah. So if women aren't willing to start to unpack their own shit, so to speak, and that shit doesn't have to be anything super traumatic, but if people aren't willing to unpack that and start to identify what's really going on, then it's really hard to coach someone. Like, I'll still sometimes take on those people because I know that they've got potential and I know I can break them down eventually. But that's also where, and this is a skill acquired as a coach, and I'm sure you're exactly the same, I've had to learn to become much more transparent and much more direct with my coaching and with my clients, because in the past I used to kind of fluff around and be like, oh yeah, like it's okay, like you're fine, like because you don't want to offend your client. They're paying your bills. But at the end of the day, you're only doing them a disservice, because they're not able to move forwards if you're not really direct with them. So sometimes I have to, I come from a place of love, but sometimes I have to be really blunt, because you have to just say it how it is, or they don't actually move forward. And if they don't want to hear it, that's okay. They're not ready. That's when you know they're not coachable. They're not actually ready to deal with their shit. Cool. Okay. Move on. You've planted a seed. Maybe in 6 months or 12 months, they'll find someone else and they'll be ready to do it. But at that point in time, they're just not there yet. And that's okay as well. But sometimes they're ready, and that's where it's like, all right, we're on now. And you know, because you've broken through it.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Like that initial screening is so, so useful.
Yeah.
For our listeners, if you are new in the industry or you've been in here for a while and you're like, how do I screen a client? It's just like, well, you want to ask them good questions. If you're going to
Yeah.
ask good questions, you're going to get good answers. If you're going to ask a bad question, guess what? You're going to get a stupid answer back. So
Yes.
love that analogy that you mentioned, Jules, in regarding to jackhammering just
Yes.
slightly down to that surface level and really nitpicking what is the cause that they're wanting to look good. Because at the end of the day, it's not just, hey, I want to look good. It's like, I want to feel my best when I go to work, or I want to be able to have sex with my partner with the lights on, have
Yes.
that confidence. There's always a meaning. And I find once you just break it a little bit and, give them a little nudge, then they realize, oh, it wasn't always about the scales. It was about X, Y, and Z. And just like their mind just like boggles and you're like, fine,
Yep.
they get it.
Yes. There are so many different strategies that I implement into my coaching surrounding mindset and beliefs. And look, I'll put my hand up and say I'm not an expert in this, but last year I did a bunch of NLP work, neuro-linguistic programming, and I did it I thought I was doing it for a professional reason. And then I started doing it and I was like, this is so personal, but it doesn't matter like what the reasoning is. Me doing it for like figuring, oh, this is much more on a personal level, actually has allowed me to change my coaching, and I'm such a better coach for it. And I only scraped the surface with a bunch of it. So understanding a bit more brain, thoughts, cognition, and language, and I pull my girls up all the time on their language, all the freaking time, to the point where they're probably like, is this bitch serious? She's still pulling me up on my language. But it honestly makes such a big difference. And if you want to sit there in victimhood and have a coach tell you there, everything's okay, you're not going to move forwards. But if you're willing to be coached and to start to change, and it's not going to be easy, like changing neural pathways and changing language and beliefs, and you've just done all the psychology behind food, and that's like a whole nother level as well. You would just look at things so differently, and you can identify those things in your clients where you're like, oh, we need to address this. And then we'll be sweet. That's another handbrake gone. That's another, like with Jack having one more layer down. And just sometimes you just need to show them the possibilities, because if people are stuck in that cycle of language and that cycle of beliefs and anxiousness, which, look, we've just had a terrible 2 years in Melbourne for many, so there's a lot of anxiety and confusion going around. And if you're stuck in that, it's really hard sometimes to see the possibilities of what's actually on the other side. So our job as a coach is to help women to go, oh, okay, and believe their true potential. Because I believe anyone could do anything. But you have to believe it yourself. If you don't believe it yourself, then you won't get there.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the power of your mind. And I love the fact that you mentioned NLP last year. I did the psychology of eating, and that was all that mindset around food. And it had a really big module around language. And language is huge, especially as women. I can speak from personal experience. I used to put myself down all the time. I used to say, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm this and that, like such awful wording that, the more you constantly repeat those words or sentences, whatever that you're saying, your mind believes it. So you end up thinking at the end of the day, you are fat, or you end up thinking that 60 kilos is overweight for you. So I love the fact that you just have those real and raw conversations with clients. It's like having a conversation with your best mate. It's like, if your best mate turned around to you and be like, oh my God, Jules, I feel so fat. Like, this is not working. I just can't be bothered. You'd be like, all right, girl, come on. Like, let's get this together. What's going on? And pretty much that's how the relationship with a client should be. It's building that rapport and then that trustworthy between one another to be able to like change those old patterns and rebuild new ones.
Absolutely. And that can be a difficult conversation to have with different people. And that's where, a good coach will be able to read people really well.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want to go in and offend a client straight away. but sometimes you've still got to have that empathy, but sometimes you've got those clients where you can just be a little bit more real and a little bit more raw. And like, I'll turn around if they start bitching and moaning, and I'm like, you know what you need to do? I've given you all the tools. It's up to you whether or not you choose to follow them. You can follow them, but you have to prioritize it in your schedule. And if you prioritize it, the trajectory of everything will move forwards in the right direction. Don't expect it to happen tomorrow or overnight, but it will. You just have to trust the process and trust that the steps that you put in place now will get you to where you need to be as time goes by.
Yeah, I preach that all day, every freaking day around that. In terms of like the process and health, you're actually going through a journey yourself right now with your first pregnancy. I really want to talk more about it if you're open for it.
Absolutely. It has been, I love being pregnant. Like it's been.
I love seeing you pregnant.
It's just like, it's a crazy, wild journey. And I have learned so much. And I feel like it's something that I could just talk about for days. But I think probably one of the biggest learnings is I just don't think women know what to ask around pregnancy or what to do. There's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of shit that people make it a bit scary. Like people still say to me, oh, should you be doing that? I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm not broken. Like, I don't need to be wrapped in cotton wool. I'm very aware of my body. I'm certainly honoring my body. And I can certainly attest to, you know, years and years of building myself to where I am has made this journey so much easier. And I know a lot of women don't have an easy time falling pregnant and don't have an easy time being pregnant. And some women don't enjoy it. But honestly, I can say I've really enjoyed it. And I think the thing I keep reminding myself is I'm super grateful to be pregnant. It's a miracle that I am pregnant. And 9 months, 10 months of my life is such a small window. But like when I look at my entire life. So if I'm tired one day or feeling uncomfortable or just not vibing it, it's a small window. And I'm just trying to embrace every single moment of it because it might be something I never go through again. And I'm probably going to look back at it and go, oh, what a beautiful time that was. So I'm just trying to embrace the whole journey for what it is. And I've loved, you know me, I won't over research things, but I want to be as informed. I do. I just want to be as informed as I can. And I've aligned myself with the people that I need to, that resonate with me. And I feel super aligned with the journey that I'm on with it. I've got eight weeks to go if I go full term, which I assume I will.
I'm sure you will. You'll probably push a little bit further as well.
Maybe, who knows?
Oh, it's so good. In terms of, you know, the lead up of your pregnancy, how has your training been and your nutrition?
Yeah. So my going into being pregnant, before I fell pregnant, I was doing a bit of a challenge. So I was training heaps. I was moving my body every day, doing my steps, weight training, really focusing on mindfulness. I was reading every day, good quality sleep. I love my sleep. And I was tracking my food. I was eating 2,400 calories per day, and I was probably the leanest I'd been in a long time. The goal wasn't to get lean, but the more I put my food up, the leaner I got. So I just kept rolling with it. So I went into, like, I wasn't drinking or anything like that. So I went into my pregnancy in a really, really good position, and eating a really good amount of food. Trimester 1, I felt pretty good compared to a lot of stories that you hear. And I certainly think it's how you go into your pregnancy. Like, I went in eating a huge amount of food, eating nourishing foods. My gut health was good. My hormonal health was great. I was moving my body. I was very mindful of stress management and sleep and, you know, all of your pillars to health that we talk about all the time, that I say, you know, the basics matter, because they do. So I went into a really good place. I wouldn't say I was sick in trimester 1. The best way to explain it, in the mornings I felt hungover, and if I didn't eat the second I opened my eyes, I felt awful, but I was just eating. I was still training I would say, as usual, I backed it off to about 4 days a week, still doing my weight training. I went and saw a pelvic floor physio.
Yeah, let's
not
talk
because
about that.
Yeah, so I didn't, obviously, like, I've danced forever, I've done Pilates, I'm very conscious of my body, and I know I'm a strong person, but going into a pregnancy, it's a whole different thing. My body's about to experience a whole new level of change. So for me, it was like getting the green tick that everything was where it needed to be and how it needed to be and functioning as it needed to be, because you can have a really tight pelvic floor, but tight doesn't inherently mean that it's strong.
Yeah.
Or you can have a weak pelvic floor and a strong TBA. And that's, again, not helpful because, your pelvic floor is holding everything up and in. So for me, it was like, cool, all right, I'm going to do the right thing, make sure everything's as it needs to be. So I went and saw a really incredible pelvic floor physio, got the tick for everything. She was happy with everything. She said, just, practice your pelvic floor exercises while you're training, while you're not training, while you're walking, while you're driving, while you're sleeping, in all positions, because, it's working under load. It's not just working while you're laying down in bed. So that was probably the first person I saw with respect to, like, my training and that sort of thing. She was obviously happy for me to keep training. My training has changed with each trimester. So probably I backed off my training a bit, simply just because I was so frustrated that I couldn't train like I normally would. Like, it was infuriating for me not being able to go in as like a more, more as a strength-based athlete and go in and squat and deadlift like a motherfucker. Not being able to do that was really, like, I'd go in and I'm like, I'm so frustrated, I can't do that. And then once you get to trimester 2, you're not supposed to lay on your back. So then, like, a whole bunch of exercises went out the door, and then I couldn't lay on my front. And I was like, ah. So I've continued to adapt. By about week 22 of my pregnancy, I felt pregnant. Up until then, I was pretty sweet. Like, I didn't show early and I didn't have that much of a bump. So I could still kind of get around everything. But come week 22, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, here we go. Now she's pregnant. Now there's a baby in there. So definitely more adaptations to training. And to be honest, I thought I would be moving my body more training-wise than what I have.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel bad about it. I've been doing weights twice a week. I still hit my 70,000 steps every week. I do my stretching and keep everything moving. And I'm just, like, when I go in, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just moving my body. Lots more posterior work, lots more glute work, just with the changes and the shifts and everything. Like, your rib cage expands, your hips start to expand. Certainly no PBs. So
no, not yet.
No, not yet.
Yes, baby.
So it's been good. And then nutrition wise, I don't know, like, just same. I had food aversions in trimester 1. Yeah. They kind of subsided a bit. I'm eating like a horse. Like, I'm eating so much. So so common
to have that extra hunger during these times.
Yeah, like, just trimester 1, I had to eat to curb the nausea.
Yeah.
Trimester 2 is pretty sweet. Trimester 3 is like another level. Like, I literally wake up in the night, and if I'm hungry, I can't go back to sleep. I'm like there with my banana in bed. My partner's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't sleep. I'm so insatiably hungry. So, but again, like, I went into the pregnancy on a good amount of calories. So it's meant that, my body had a really good base level to start with. So I've just been able to keep building upon that. And I'm still moving. I'm still taking classes. I'm still very active. I'm coaching my girls. So, it's all got to balance out somewhere. And then, I've been doing my own blood work. So I did that at the start, week 20, week 30. Iron dropped week 30. Week 20, it was sweet. And then by week 30, it just plummeted, which is super common. Interesting, like, I've actually preferentially eaten red meat this whole pregnancy over chicken, and I was a chicken gal through and through. So, and I've been taking a desiccated beef spleen the whole way, but obviously just not enough. Like, Bubs gets all the nutrient first, and then I get what's left over. So just little things like that has left me a bit more fatigued throughout the journey. But other than that, like, I'm pretty sweet. I haven't hit too many hiccups yet. So It's it's been interesting. It's just honoring my body, listening to it day in, day out. And if I don't feel like something, I'm not forcing myself to go and train if I'm not up for it that day.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Once you get into, well, you're already in trimester 3, things start changing a little bit more. And as you said, like, your adaptability to train harder decreases. So hence why you need a little bit more rest.
Absolutely. Like trimester 1, sometimes I would train, and in my mind I was like, oh, like I'm training a reasonable amount, like I'm not obviously hitting any PBs or anything. 3 hours later I would just crash. So it's learning how to listen to how your body's responding. And now my my sessions are shorter, and that's also concentration. Like I get in there and I'm like airy fairy, can't concentrate because baby brain, which is a whole nother thing as well. I'm like, oh my God, why can't I focus? So yeah, like shortening my sessions and not killing myself to the point where then later in the day I'm too exhausted to do anything, because then I'm of no use to anybody else. So yeah, it's listening to your body. And I'm so lucky I've got that really, really strong body awareness to be able to know when I need to push and when I need to pull back. And I've aligned myself with some incredible practitioners in the industry specializing in pre and postnatal care, that if I ever need help, I've got them right there. They're right there for me to ask questions and to throw things back and forward. So that's been beautiful too.
I love that. And especially during pregnancy, like I can't speak from experience just yet.
Yes.
You want to be surrounded with practitioners who have, the knowledge around pre and post pregnancy, and, giving you obviously the options around the nutrition side of things, doing the blood work, maybe attending some like birthing classes. Have you done any of that as well?
Yeah, I have. So it's interesting that you say that, actually, because so I suppose going into pregnancy, if I kind of just backstep one little bit, I knew I wanted to have kids, absolutely, but I had no timeline on it really. I was never that person that visualized my birth or thought about like me with my kids in 5 years. I was never really that girl. But falling pregnant, like I'm obviously so freaking excited. But going into it, I was like, right, okay, now I need to plan out this journey. I need to plan what this looks like. And I think women don't know what questions to ask or where to seek help. So a lot of questions that I get asked are, did your doctor give you clearance to train? What does your obstetrician say about X, Y, and Z? Where are you having your baby? All of those typical questions, which is super normal. And I feel like I'm that person who is like the opposite end of every answer everyone expects for everything. So I am having a home birth, which is both for personal reasons, because it's very aligned with how I operate holistically and naturally. Also because of COVID, I would hate for something to happen to my partner, not be allowed at the hospital during or after the birth. So that were two major considerations within my journey, which means that I work with midwives. So to be honest, I don't really have anything to do with the GP. I have been to my GP very, very early on, but my midwives are able to give me pathology scripts and I go through any questions with them. And I did get accepted into hospital to birth, and then I did go for my first appointment there, and then I rang them and said, hey, look, I won't be coming in. I'm going to do a home birth. So that was all fine. Obstetrician-wise as well, I chose to go privately with an obstetrician who works in a private clinic, simply because paying an obstetrician meant that my partner got to be at the scans. And we've had friends through COVID where they're birthing through hospitals, even privately through hospitals, and paying, and their partners can't be at the scans. So for me, I was like, well, it's my partner's right to be there. So I've chosen to do it that way. And then my doctor of choice, I suppose you would say, is my beloved Chinese herbal practitioner, acupuncturist. He has been my doctor for many, many years, since probably 2016-ish, when I started my own health journey, restoring my own cycle. So he's continued to be my go-to. If I've got stuck with anything, I call him and I consult with him instead. So it's different, but it's totally aligned with who I am and how I operate and what I want. So yeah, I don't even know what the initial question was now. I've totally lost it. But like,
I was asking about the birthing classes as well, but we
oh yeah,
got
and the
into the
birthing
topic of
classes.
nutrition.
I've done hypnobirthing. So
Yeah.
again, like I could have gone and done your typical birthing classes through a hospital,
Yeah.
but yeah, I went through a beautiful little place, Bayside, down near me. We did it all through Zoom because of COVID, and that was really mind blowing, really, really eye opening. As I said, many women don't know what questions to ask, and there's a lot of fear around birth. Like when you think about birth, what do you think about? You think of Hollywood film, like women screaming, women being coached to push, women dying as having, like, not physically, but like really mentally and physically exhausted having their babies. What stories do you hear? Your family members tell you about all the traumatic experiences that they've had, or someone had this or someone had that. And like, it's always very fear-based.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of the most natural things a woman can do. Like your cycle and having a baby are physiologically so natural. And that's also why I chose to home birth, because I wanted to be in a really comfortable, calm environment. And that's my home. So the hypnobirthing, I highly recommend it. If you don't know what it is, it's like hypnosis during your birth, which sounds super, super woo-woo, but it's not. Basically, it just means creating the most positive birth experience on your day for whatever happens and being calm and okay with that. So knowing what questions to ask and knowing your rights as a mother. I think a lot of women go into a hospital. When do you usually go to hospital? Because you're sick.
Yeah.
When you're pregnant, you are not sick. You go to hospital to have a baby, but you're not broken, you're not sick. You don't necessarily need to be treated. You're almost going there as a client of the obstetrician, not a patient. So just thinking about things differently that way. And I'm lucky I don't have a lot of fear around birth or trauma. You know, my mum had great births, so I don't have that. But there was people in the class that they were like, wow, you're so brave for home birthing. And I was like, am I? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's brave. But again, it's because other people's perception on things is totally different to mine. And that's totally fine. But they were there because they had traumatic associations with birth. So they were there to break that down and to go, right, okay, how can I make my experience more positive? How can I not have an experience like my mum? Because just because your mother had a bad birth, it doesn't mean that you will.
Yeah.
So it's really eye-opening. Yeah, yep, for sure. And I think women just, I don't know, they just expect it's going to be a horrendously awful experience. And
like you said, it's from like stories that you hear from other people, and like everyone's going to have some different experience for it. But I love the fact that you've just gone out there, you've done your research, you've chosen to do things your own way instead of doing things by other people's opinions or other people's advice. You know, you can take everything with a grain of salt, but like you said, if it doesn't align with you properly, you're already, you know, I'm all about like the intuition. If you're not intuitive with it, it's going to put some form of stress or just a really like sick feeling in your gut. And you don't want that when you're about to experience having, you know, a baby. So yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned that you've gone your way to choose to have the home birth, you know, do the classes that you've done, taking care of your nutrition to, you know, that certain degree, which obviously looks completely different to some other women who are pregnant or have been pregnant.
And like I get a lot of questions and messages on Instagram, and I think what I just say to people is you need to do what feels most aligned with you and what feels safest for you, what feels best for you and for your baby, because that's all that matters. It doesn't matter other people's opinions. It doesn't matter what anybody else has chosen to do. What matters is that you feel safe and aligned with your choices. And, you know, on the day, if something changes, I'm not going to have a home birth, and I'm totally okay with that because I'm not going to be able to control everything. I will control the controllables, but, you know, there's no point me going into worrying about all the what ifs. And that's what people have said to me. They're like, oh, what if this? And like, I had literally someone, they said, where are you having a baby? I said, I'm having a home birth. And they literally said, oh, I knew someone who did that and they died. And I was like, thank you for sharing your opinion with me. Like, not helpful, but also
not at all.
No, but because I'm so, and this is like 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been this rational about the whole thing, but I'm so clear on what I want, what's important to me, and what's aligned with my values that I know that this is the right choice for me. If I let everybody else's what if this and what if that and all the unknowns overwhelm the shit out of me, I would probably be really nervous and not feeling good about it. But I've worked very hard not to allow myself to get overwhelmed in life with different things, so I can apply that to this situation as well. It's like anything. It's like your coaching. It's like your goals when clients come on board with you, being totally aligned and knowing that you're on the right path. It doesn't matter what someone says to you. You can just go, yep, cool. Thank you for your advice. And you move through and do what you want to do.
Yeah, so true. I love how you just aligned all this pregnancy talk back onto the coaching side of things, because it's so true, because everyone's going to have some form of opinion and experience. You know, I've experienced really horrible coaches, but I've also been with really amazing mentors, and you know, you just take everything with a grain of salt. You know, the coach that worked really badly for you may work really well with someone else with a different type of personality. So, it comes down to, like Jules said, doing your own research. You know, take the opinion of others, but if it doesn't align with you, look for another answer. Like, there's always different answers. You just don't have to go by just one answer and, you know, that's it.
Yep. And I'm sure, like you saying, you've worked with coaches that at the time haven't been the best coach for you. I'm sure you don't regret it. I'm sure you've actually moved forward from that with all of these lessons under your belt to be able to go, cool, I now am actually more clear on what I want, because that's not what I want. And I'm more clear and more aligned with how I want to approach things, because I've seen the other side and I know that doesn't work for me. So it actually almost gives you more clarity, rather than moving forward from those circumstances and having that was a fucking waste of time and that was shit and I hated that. Look for the lessons, look for the silver lining, and carry that forwards. You go into every new opportunity and every new experience being more clear with what you want, realistically.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you mentioned that. It's so, so true. To be honest, like, we could be chatting about this
I know
forever. Seriously, like, not only the coaching side of things, but about your progress around pregnancy. Like, it has been amazing. So before we, you know, set the episode up, where can our listeners find you?
The easiest place to find me would be Instagram. That's where I hang out most. So it's just Juliette Bag. And if anyone has any questions with respect to my pregnancy journey or just coaching in general, flick me a message. I'm here and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so, so much, Jules, for jumping on. It has been incredible. I love hearing about your journey. It's so cool. So, so cool.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, babe.
Yes, no, thank you so much for jumping on. So, girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please tag myself, tag Juliette, and tag the Women's Fitness Academy. Until next time, take everything with a grain of salt, get the opinions, but do your own research and choose what's best for you. Thank you, girls.
Absolutely.